So we've got a very, very rainy day in Cambridge. I don't know if you also have got this rain storm. But anyway, thank you for coming. And if you're watching this on the recording, then welcome as well. So what we'll do is introduce ourselves, and it would be really nice if you could introduce yourself in the chat as well. So maybe you could just tell us where you're from, which school you're from, and if you've actually started using AccessArt yet, or if you're thinking about using us, or when you're going to start using us. That would be really nice for us to find out. Toby, are you okay doing the waiting room? Lovely. Okay, so we'll introduce ourselves. My name's Paula and I'm the creative director of AccessArt, and then Rachel's here as well.
Hi everyone, nice to see you. I'm Rachel. I work across the CPD programme and also in content creation. Toby?
Hi, I'm Toby and I work on the creative content side of the website.
And I don't know if Lou's here.
She's just sent a message to us saying she can't make it in the end.
Right, okay. She's probably coughing with her bug that she's got.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. All right, well, we'll get started. So we've actually got two presentations for you. One that we're going to do in today's session, and then one that we're going to give to you as a PowerPoint so you can use it in your school. We've also got lots of lovely prizes to raffle out at the end. So Toby's going to help us with that. We are recording the session, as you know, but it's on speaker view. So unless you speak, you won't be recorded. But it is a question and answer session as well. So we've got some questions that have arrived by email and message. But if you do have any questions, please put them in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute yourself at the end, then that's fine. And we can always take you out of the recording if you prefer not to be on it. So we can work with that. Okay, so is that showing okay, Rachel?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. So the aim of the session today is to help you think about how you will introduce AccessArt to your staff. So we're kind of assuming that if you're attending this session, you have some kind of responsibility for art in your school. So maybe you're an art lead, or maybe you're SLT and you're trying to decide if AccessArt is right for yourself. So this presentation really is specifically to help you as a teacher or art lead introduce AccessArt to the rest of the staff in the school. But equally, if you are just here as a teacher in your school, that's absolutely fine. All the information is still really relevant. But what we wanted to try and do was make it as easy as possible for you to introduce AccessArt in your school. So we'd had requests from various teachers by email asking the best way to share AccessArt with the rest of the teachers. So that's why we've created this session. We want to try and make it less overwhelming. We really appreciate that when you start something new in your school, and maybe it's quite a difference from the approach you've had before, that it can be overwhelming for staff. So we want to try and kind of lighten the load for you a little bit and help you look forward to it and have fun. And part of that is also giving you really clear starting points and links. So we've created a presentation which has steps. I think there are 9 steps. You don't have to do all these steps at all. They're just suggestions as to what might help introducing AccessArt into your school, and you can pick and choose what you want to do. So Rachel, please do feel able to interrupt. I don't want to take over. So the first one really is to ensure that everyone in the school knows what AccessArt stands for. So I guess by that we mean our ethos and also what we can do for you in your school. So I'm guessing that if you're an art coordinator and you've already made the decision to use us in the school, then you've done a fair bit of research on what we actually stand for and what we're all about. But you need to kind of pass that enthusiasm on to teachers as well, so they feel like they're buying into it as well. So just a very quick summary of what we do stand for. And again, if you're interested in AccessArt, then this will be of interest. So what we're all about really is open-ended creative learning. So what we're not about, and we'll talk about this in a little while, is very pedantic and structured lesson plans where everybody in the class ends up with a similar outcome. For us, it's much more about the whole journey, and that journey consists of lots of different elements, which again, we'll talk about in a bit. So we're also really keen that the resources are really adaptable and that you can adapt them to your school, and teachers can feel like they own the resources and the pathways, And as their confidence grows, they can really adapt them as well. So we really want AccessArt to feel like it's very, very flexible and very personal. So that's for the pupils and the teachers as well. So that word ownership is really important to us. We also appreciate that if you've got less experienced staff, they might want to stick to the pathways and the resources quite closely, and that's absolutely fine. But the idea is that as they attend more CPD or get used to the pathways, they can really grow with them as well as the activities. So really, really important to us that non-specialist teachers and inexperienced pupils feel as inspired as everybody else. So we're not just trying to create a whole climate of artists in the school. We're just trying to show children and teachers how many different ways there are of being interested and good at art, and there are many, many different ways, and make sure that we offer those opportunities to everybody. So we need to, again, it goes back to being flexible and personal as to what the resources are that we offer and how they can be picked up as well. So the resources are very much about pedagogy as well as activity. So you'll find that woven throughout the pathways and the resources, they're led with activities that the teachers are going to be doing in schools, but the pedagogy behind those activities is always shared. On the right there, you'll see a link to pedagogy in 250 words, resources. And by the way, we'll put these links in the chat and share them after the session as well. But they're little resources, little animations to help teachers think about different ways that they can teach art in terms of good practice. So it's really important that teachers in your school begin to understand why they're doing stuff. And Ofsted is really clear about that as well. So there's also a link there to the intent behind the AccessArt scheme, which in itself goes to 2 other pages that are bookmarked on that page. And presumably, if you've bought into AccessArt, you've already seen that page and you've read what AccessArt's all about. But I think it's worth sharing those with teachers as well, or at least explaining it in your own words. And the PowerPoint that we're going to share with you for you to share with teachers also explains that. So is that okay, Rachel?
Yeah, great. Yeah.
So second point that we think it's quite important for you to do is understand and acknowledge the differences between your existing approach and share why you think our approach, AccessArt's approach, is going to be right for you and your pupils. So, you know, we're learning over time what schools have done before AccessArt, and we're learning more and more over time over why they're choosing AccessArt, but you're going to have your own story. So it's quite possible that you've written your own curriculum in school before and you're moving away from that, so we can offer a little bit more depth or richness. It might be that you've moved from another provider, but I think there's quite a good chance that the AccessArt approach is quite different from what you've already been using. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't go to the trouble of moving to us. So on the left there, before the /, I've kind of put what we're understanding about places that schools have moved from, and then after the / is what they're moving to when you get to AccessArt. So for us, it's not that there isn't an emphasis on outcome. It's just that we place the emphasis on the journey. So for us, it's all about journeyful learning. And if you've had a good journey, you've been able to present a good journey with the children, then you're going to get a good outcome anyway. So we do care about the outcome, but we think you're going to get good outcomes if you concentrate more on the journey, which for us probably means slowing the journey down a little bit, taking more diversions and being less in control. Less in control doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing or the pupils don't know what they're doing. They do and you do, but you're just giving them a little bit more freedom. And I think that's exemplified really in the fact that we don't use worksheets and we don't tightly control processes. We're always trying to open out what pupils are going to be doing and understanding, and what teachers are as well. So the journeys that children go on, although they're presented in the pathways as a line, as in week 1, week 2, week 3, they're very flexible and they can be moved around. And the progress is definitely non-linear in art. And again, Ofsted will recognise that when we've talked to Ofsted, and with the Ofsted review, they recognise that progression in art is not always linear. And actually, you don't want it to be linear.
And just to add to that, Paula, because I was looking at the introductions in the chat of who different people here today, and there's a mix of, you know, some people who are completely new to AccessArt, some people are starting to use the curriculum for September. So there's a variety of different people coming to this from different angles. And I think that the thing about this idea of approach and difference of approach is that we don't want anybody to feel like if you are thinking about changing your approach or you're in the process of that happening, that it needs to be an immediate thing that is unsolved and then solved. It's a journey in itself, isn't it? So we don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed with feeling they've got to make a monumental change. And we hope that the pathway, the way that they're structured, that it really facilitates, it's supportive of that process.
That's right. Yeah, I think it's that word organic, isn't it? And you know, even if you did change to AccessArt and then you had an Ofsted, and they in theory at least, they should be very open to a conversation about you understanding what it is you're going to change over time. And that iterative process, I think, is really important for the pathways themselves, for the children, and for you as teacher. So yeah, I think we'll talk in this presentation about ways you can start by just dipping your toes in, but you're absolutely right, Rachel. It's not a switch. It's a gradual building of your understanding, I think. So yeah, so those that greater emphasis on journey and the fact that we're not tightly controlling processes means you will get really varied outcomes, and that the children, I think, probably even more important than seeing varied outcomes, feel like they own their work. So whatever their outcome is, there is a sense of ownership about it, which is really important. When we devised the curriculum, we never wanted to see every school in England doing the same pathway at the same time. That wasn't our plan. Our plan was just to give you a basis of something that you could explore the structure of and then let it adapt and evolve, as it says there. So that might be a more long-term aspiration or ambition for your school. But it would be nice to go into it helping the staff understand that this is an exciting journey for them. And you'll keep the successful elements, and then other stuff will adapt and evolve and grow. So I think it just needs an honest conversation, doesn't it, Rachel, where staff can feel able to share their worries. And interestingly, when I was in that school in London that I visited a few weeks ago, I don't know if Charlotte's on the call actually, but she was telling me about a teacher that was newly qualified and was really, really resistant to picking up the curriculum, the AccessArt curriculum, even though the school were doing it and enjoying it. And she was terrified because it had been so long since she made any art in her own life, never mind taught art. And she was really resisting it. And in the end, the art lead said, you know, come on, you need to do it. And they started with the Explore and Draw pathway for year one. And she loves it. She's straight away really enjoyed it, appreciates now all those things on that slide there, the freedom and the ownership. But until she actually did it, she was very fearful of it. So we'll talk about that, but sometimes you just need to get stuck in, I think. But it's, yeah.
And we know that there's quite different art leads can have a really different experience from one another. We're aware that it can really vary according to your school, how much you feel able to coordinate or lead. And we know that there are sometimes challenges to that in terms of uptake and buy-in and things like that.
Yeah. And I guess understanding what the resistance is.
Yeah.
Is it overwhelm? Is it lack of experience? And but yeah, part of getting around that, I think, is for you to then reassure teachers that this is working for other schools. I'm not going to click on it, but there's a link there to our impact and evidence report that we created as a result of a survey last year. So we surveyed teachers that had been using the AccessArt primary curriculum, some of them for just a few months, like 4 months, 5 months, and some for just under a year. And there were lots of lovely statistics on that report. We found it really interesting and reassuring, and I'm sure you will as well, in terms of the impact even then, even after just a few months and short term using AccessArt curriculum, how it was impacting teachers and pupils as well. So you can see there the staff, for example, the bottom image there, how many of them had very, very little experience, confidence and enthusiasm. And after just a few months, that had gone right down. So they had more experience, confidence and enthusiasm. And for us, the confidence and enthusiasm part is really important, because I think then you can kind of, you're not pulling people along, they're starting to form their own journey. And that was I think, Toby, was that a sample size? It was about just under 500 teachers that answered that survey. So it was a decent sample size to get that information from. So maybe sharing, there's lots of nice graphics in that report, but maybe sharing that report with your teachers would help reassure them that you think this is a good thing to do. So the next thing we suggest is some kind of staff training session, but not with the aim of skilling them to do a particular pathway, but just to see what it's like to do 1 or 2 or 3 of the drawing exercises on the site. Because there's nothing like staff actually picking up a pencil to help them feel confident and to understand not just what it's like to use AccessArt as a teacher, but what it's like to do some of the exercises and approaches as a learner. So I won't play them now, but there's a lovely video that, animation there that you can show to teachers, which basically the aim of that is to open their minds as to what drawing is. Because what we don't want to do and what AccessArt's not about is just concentrating on one particular set of skills, like technical skills. What we need to do in all areas of the curriculum is open minds so that we can understand that when we're teaching art or learning or facilitating art, we're actually enabling lots of different skills, not just technical skills. So obviously there's creative skills and imaginative thinking, but there's also things like oracy skills and reflection skills as well. So whatever the subject matter is, we need to open teachers' minds. And if you can open the teachers' minds in your school, then again, you're getting them on their own journey and they'll take the children with them. So there's an example there with the drawing one that they can just watch. It's very short, maybe like 3 or 4 minutes, just to open the minds. And then this one here, this one is actually aimed for children, but the teachers can watch it just to open minds as to what a drawing tool is. And then there's a lovely drawing exercise that they can try there. So we would hope if you just did a quick, and it wouldn't take long. I mean, it probably would take 20 minutes to watch those 3 animations and do a drawing exercise, but we would hope that you could maybe do 1 or 2 of them and just start to build some confidence and enthusiasm for what it is you're asking them to do. Okay, Rachel?
Yeah, and I can quickly add to that with that sort of idea of opening minds and opening up how we're thinking about art. It kind of, not only, is it great for teachers themselves to pick up a pencil and experience drawing, but it then follows that they can then see firsthand or experience firsthand the broad range of different types of learning that happens through visual art. And that is exactly why it's a really difficult subject to assess, to pin down, to tick box, to grade, that kind of thing. So if we're broadening our awareness of exactly what it is, then we can hopefully lessen our expectation that it needs to be assessed in a way, in a measured way, in the same way that some other subjects are.
Yeah. So following on from the getting the staff to do it on their own in the staff room, lots of schools have been using either the 10 minutes 5 times a week exercises, or there's some very similar exercises packaged together in a 6-week drawing course, which doesn't take 6 weeks at all. It's basically just 6 exercises or 5 exercises that you can do in the whole school. So the idea here is that rather than follow a pathway straight away in September when you come back, in the summer term, you kind of get pupils and teachers enthusiastic about art and you give them a chance to see what it's like to work with AccessArt resources. So the idea here is that every child in the school can do these same exercises. Hopefully they've done them in the staff room before so the teachers know what it is they're doing. Every child can do them. They don't need any prior experience. You could even do them in the hall together with groups of children, or you could do them in classrooms. I think what you're doing by doing that is you're building enthusiasm and you're getting children used to this idea that drawing in this case is perhaps very different from their preconception of what drawing is. So you're opening minds, but you're putting pencils and drawing materials in the hands and letting them work on different sizes and scales. But you're also creating a massive body of work. So you've got a snapshot then as well of what children are doing in various year groups. So Rachel mentioned assessment, and there are no national standards in art now. So you can't really assess. All you can do is, and you don't really need to assess, you can assess your own curriculum, you can assess your offering and make sure that you're giving the children opportunities. But really, it's just about progression. And if you give them opportunities, they will definitely progress. So if you've done these drawing exercises in the summer term, for example, then you've got a great series of benchmarks. You can photograph everything, store it. And then if you want to look back after a year of using AccessArt, you've got something you can go back to and have a look at. So we'll share those links. We definitely recommend them just as a way of creating a kind of feeling that, well, you're all in it together sounds a bit dramatic, but that you are doing something as a school that's really exciting. You're all going on this AccessArt journey to develop your creativity and your thinking skills as well. So that's a nice way to start it, I think. So the bit more overwhelming part, probably, if we're being honest, is where you help the staff prepare for what they're going to be doing in September, if that's when you're starting to use it. And we've worked really hard to create a lot of support videos that help teachers understand, as I said, the pedagogy and the activities as well. And we've also worked really hard to create lots of support docs, and the support docs have been influenced by what schools have asked us for. So we've tried to make sure they're as relevant as they can be. All the support docs are editable. So once you remember, you can log in and edit them. But there comes a point when no matter what we put on the website, it's only any use if somebody spends some time absorbing it. So I know that art leads do an awful lot of work, an awful lot of that absorption on behalf of teachers in their school. And I know that varies a lot school on school, depending on the experience of the art lead and enthusiasm of the art lead as well. But I guess what we would encourage you to do is to, through getting the teachers to buy into AccessArt, push as much as you can on the teachers. You know, we know you're doing your job as an art coordinator and you're doing a brilliant job, but ultimately the teachers do need to buy into it. So you're signposting them to where they need to go is really important. I won't click on the site now. Maybe I'm just watching the clock, but maybe we'll come back to the site navigation rather than leave this PowerPoint. Is that okay, Rachel? And then we can do a quick tour of the things that we think you should point your staff to. And it is also in the other PowerPoint that we share. So yeah, we've suggested here do another staff training. It could be added on to the drawing exercise one that you did, where you share the PowerPoint that we'll share with you. And that PowerPoint, of course, in itself can be adapted by you. So there is a growing catalogue of resources, as I've said, on the site, which are recordings of these sessions. So they're available for members. So when your school pays the £42 or £96 or whatever you pay for your teacher members, I mean, it's incredible value of money in terms of the resources on the site. But when you think that actually that then enables your staff for free CPD for the next year and access to all the old CPD session recordings, that it is incredible value for money. But again, they need to go and watch some of them. So we'll take you around that bit of the site in a minute and show you so that you can show them. We know that everybody's busy. We really appreciate it when you do turn up for sessions, but I think really signposting them and getting them to understand different areas of the site via those resources is really important. So if you find that when you start working with us, maybe in September or by January or wherever next year, that staff are struggling with specific things, so you might identify something very specific, or it might be like assessment or an area that they need more knowledge on, then you can always email us and ask us which resources should we be pointing our staff to. So you identify the need and then ask us, what have we got? And then we can send you the link to a specific recording that you can then pass on to the staff. We've also got links, and again, we'll share them, to the materials so that you can start preparing materials for September. And the materials are also listed on the pathways themselves. So you'll have decided by then which pathways you're doing. And then you can just go and pick those out from the materials list. And there's also a link from this page, there's a link to another page created by, I can't remember her name, Toby.
Jan Miller.
Jan Miller, thank you, Rachel. Who's created a lovely post, very detailed, with the word budget in the title, and she's suggesting lots of kind of, not just alternatives, but ways of collecting materials, thinking about materials that doesn't cost much money. We have designed the curriculum so that it uses a lot of recycled stuff and found stuff and gathered stuff and donated stuff, but you will need to buy, there's a certain level of, especially drawing and painting and printmaking materials, if you're doing printmaking pathways, that you need to invest in. Okay, so that's the end of the presentation. So I don't know if there's any questions in the chat, or we can do a quick tour of the site, or there's the questions here, Rachel. I don't know which.
Yeah. Well, there was one in the chat from a bit earlier, which I did answer briefly, but we could perhaps elaborate on it now. Lorna said, my school wants to give an end of year grade to the children below, at or above age-related expectations. Does AccessArt support grading of pupils' work? And in short, I said no, but we see it in more of a holistic way. And just to reiterate what we said earlier, that there's no national standards for art. So it's not a case of by a certain age, they need to be, the work that they're producing needs to look a certain way. As soon as we start talking about grading and above age related expectations and all that language, you start closing down just how broad the different skills are across visual art. And you're sort of assuming that all children will find a rhythm that's shared. And of course, that won't be the case. They will find their own rhythm, they'll find their own learning and their own areas of strength. And for one child, that might be small scale observational drawing. For another child, that might be making, or it might be working with colour or collage or cutting. And that's why it's so incredibly difficult to pin it all down to age-related expectations, because inherently it's an exploratory subject.
Yeah, shall I, is it helpful if I quickly share?
Yes, and I think Toby,
yeah,
I think Toby has posted a link as well, so do look at the links Toby's posted on that, and then Paula, we've got.
So this is an example actually taken from EPQ, which is extended project qualification at sixth form, so way out of primary. But there is I see this popping up quite a lot now in various settings. So as Rachel's saying, there's so many ways of being good at art. So you might be great at talking about art, and that might be talking about other artists' work, or it might be about talking about your own work. You know, you might be great at talking about your intention. You may not have the skills yet to deliver that intention, or you might be great at making or not drawing, whatever it is. So thinking about progressing the child more holistically, so you've got the child at the centre. What happens in EPQ here is that the student actually decides their own areas they're going to develop in. Obviously, that's probably not quite appropriate at primary, but it's still a holistic idea that you expand outwards in your skills. So there's no comparison between pupils. I mean, you might extend in one direction and be really weak in another. And it gives you, the teacher, the opportunity to think, well, maybe we need to do more work that expands that, but you're not making a value judgment. I think it's the idea of value judgment that we always just say creativity is such a fragile beast and can be so easily destroyed or knocked or pushed down that we don't want to make value judgments. And the idea of the working at, below, whatever is, I mean, Ofsted have been very clear in their review that what works for other subjects often doesn't work for art. You know, Ofsted acknowledge that. So if a senior leadership team is putting pressure on you to apply the same metrics to art, I think there's lots of information on AccessArt to help you argue back a little bit, because you definitely don't need to do that, and you can't do that. I mean, the only way you could see how all pupils are performing, and if you spent more than 1 year taking snapshots of everybody's work and then got together as a whole school and decided, you know, what work looks like in year one. But even then, the danger is you apply your own preconceived ideas about what it is you're making those judgments on, you know, and it can't be just a technical skill, it's just a minefield. So think think broader, think wider. What's what we're trying to do, and think about the traits that is developed through learning through art, as well as the skills that you're learning about art.
Before Sam and Catherine's question about another one about grading and things, I just want to quickly, Fran has asked about the early years, and Toby, are you able to put in the link for the early years, what we call our early years curriculum, but really we separated out into these areas of exploration. What we're talking about is areas of exploration, so it's very much not pinned down in a way that a pathway is, even though pathways are fluid and flexible in themselves. Even more so, the early years very much about designed around the concept that in nurseries you have busy learning, you have movement. There's a real physical aspect to how children are learning through play. And so that is at the core of all of those, the resources that we've listed on there. So do have a look at those.
Can I just share, Rachel, to
Yeah.
get there? Because it gets missed even though it's there. Because
Yeah.
4 to 11, AccessArt primary art curriculum, you can get to it in other places. But if you go see all curriculum versions, then you can land on the EYFS.
So it's all, yeah.
It's all there. And as Rachel said, that then is picked up in the curriculum.
Yeah, so yeah. So it's a lovely sort of organic evolution between early years and then going into the primary curriculum.
The question about grading.
Yeah, so what would you put on a child's report at the end of the year for art? Every other subject has attainment level and effort grade if you're not putting age-related expectations. Yeah, so I'm aware that I think regardless of anything else, I think it literally on the report form there is I think some schools that you have to tick something, I believe. I mean, there's like no way around it. So.
Yeah, I mean, is there a way around it though? I would refer them back, and we can send you the link to the Ofsted review, which is created by Ofsted, which says very, very clearly, and it points to senior leadership team. It's not pointing to teachers. It points to senior leadership team to make sure that all the mechanisms and structures they've got in place are there for good art teaching, and they're not there because it matches other subject areas. So I would first of all point them back to that document. I would also, without becoming too political or whatever, the whole idea of Ofsted giving a single judgment has been very problematic, as we know. And I think to be able to sum up, and I know this happens at GCSE and A-level, you know, a child's progress by a grade is so hard. So I think a paragraph.
I was just going to say, wouldn't it be great if there was the opportunity to, at that point, if you're talking about art, to write a short paragraph that shows or that recounts that child's feeling about art, the things that they may have said, the opportunities they may have had, and talking about it from that developmental side. And if you can't do that as a separate thing, you know, there is on reports, there is the sort of general paragraphs you put before any of the goes into specific subjects, you know, maybe integrate some mention about creativity within that paragraph. You know, some reference to what they've done in art. If you can't do it anywhere else and there's no opportunity to really celebrate their creative achievement, you know, whatever that achievement is, you could.
Yeah, I would challenge. I mean, if we've got one child that's very good about talking about art and another about making a technical drawing and another about being very expressive, how are you going to judge them? And I think you don't want to. You really
want to avoid it. If you can.
What is the point in making children think they can't do something by giving them a grade that in itself the grade is just failing to express what they've been good at? So we can keep that conversation going. But I would fight back with the senior leadership team if you can.
Rianne has her solution in her school. I don't allow students to know their grades. I don't put them in their reports. I write a paragraph about their experience, but I keep a record of grades privately to appease SLT. So that's a potential route to go down. And the important word there is experience. I write a paragraph about their experience. I mean, that's really what we should be thinking about and absorbing as, you know, educators. How are the children experiencing art, and what are we doing to ensure that their experience is as rich and diverse as possible? And what are we doing that might be a barrier to that?
Yeah.
We know it's a massive challenge, and it is, to us, it feels baffling as artists as well that happens. Yeah. There's another comment. Keegan, I'm a DHT, deputy head teacher, that must be. And we were recently inspected. We maintained good. It was made very clear to us that the inspectors wanted to be clear that teachers should be specific about what they want children to learn, and children should be able to describe their own progress, not compare their progress. This was checked when they spoke with pupils.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I know that's a pointed use of the word compare, but that is really important, isn't it? That you're in a situation where you can celebrate the fact that there is diversity in success, or diversity in need that you can then address as teacher. So that's great. I mean, the only thing I would say there is, again, not every inspector, unfortunately, and this is admitted by Ofsted, has great understanding or expert understanding of teaching art. So when they say that teachers should be specific about what they want children to learn, I mean, that's a can of worms as well, because although we're kind of suggesting what they are going to learn and experience in those pathways, we also want to be open enough that the children show us what they discover. That's the whole point about art. It's not mapped learning, teaching and learning. So if an inspector says, what are they learning, then that's an interesting conversation, I think. But anyway, it sounded like they were appreciating what children were able to say in terms of their own. So I take that as a good,
yeah,
if that's the way that was meant.
yeah.
How are we doing for time? So, I mean, there are a few more questions. Happy to stay and answer them, but also don't want to take people's time. We've also got the raffle to do. We don't want to miss out on the fun. Does anybody else have a question that they want to ask here and now? Because we can also answer these questions that were sent by email. We can answer them by email.
Yeah, why don't you read out an email one, Paula, and then we can perhaps...
Yeah, okay. So, well, this comes up a lot. So a teacher asking that they've got complicated mixed year groups and they're using the split curriculum. How much flexibility is there to move pathways around? So hopefully if you have seen them from the resources on the site, the videos and things, we do stress that you can move everything around. So schools do get in touch with us with very complicated mixed year groups. And it is hard to get your head around them sometimes. But if you look at using those early years as well, that's sometimes really helpful when you just need extra resources. But if you're doing the the split curriculum, so in effect, you're only using half the resources available to you, then you've got lots of resources to choose from the main curriculum. And it's fine if you twist them around. So it's fine if 1 year, a year 3 does something first that maybe they would have done the year later if they followed the full curriculum. And I think, I mean, it is schools that are already using the resources are really understanding that a child can just start using a pathway in year 5, for example, and they've not had any prior experience of any other pathways. And they find their own level and they enjoy it and they do what they need to do and they succeed at it. So I think that should give you confidence that you don't have to have all those steps beforehand for them to enjoy and benefit from the pathway. But it is complicated. So what Toby and I are happy to look at your email versions if you are changing things around, and we can sometimes make suggestions. Okay, Rachel, anything?
Should we also share the presentation that we've made?
Yes, we should, Toby, because we spent a long time doing that, didn't we? Hold on a minute, I've just blocked. Okay. So what we'll do is send you a link to, I hope we've got the right one.
I think Toby's just put it there, Paula.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was just going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is the wrong one that I'm showing now. Okay. Okay, so we'll share it. Yeah, well, I won't share my screen because it's gone wrong. But we've created a PowerPoint, and you can obviously change the slides according to the kind of curriculum that you followed. And there's lots of links from the SharePoint back to the AccessArt site so that you can kind of give teachers tasks as well, so they can go away and do. So hopefully that's useful to you. Sorry, Toby, did you mean you can share it because you've got it on your screen?
No, I've just shared the link. I think the one that you had was the right one. But I've also put it into the chat if you want to find the link from there.
I have got it on my it's hiding. That's what it's doing. It's hiding behind the other one.
I've got it here, Paula. Do you want me to? No, you got it. It's fine.
Oh, is it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we basically just take you through. We've changed the language. So, you know, why have we chosen, as in you have chosen. So you can just take out what you want. But we've shared the aims of the curriculum. We've shared a link to that impact report to reassure. We've scattered a few tasks through, which they don't have to in the session, but you can gather those links together for them. And then we've put it into areas. So we're showing them around the structure of the curriculum. Start with early years. Again, if you're not using it, you can take that out. And then here you are going to have to make some choices. So depending on the curriculum that you've followed, you can get rid of the other slides. So you can use that as a basis to go through. So you introduce them to the curriculum that you are following. And then we've created slides that talk them through the pathways themselves. So what's the structure of a pathway and what are we trying to do within those pathways? And then quick look at some of the key skills. And you can come back to these key skills for other sessions with the staff separately. But basically key skills being drawing, sketchbooks, and oracy and reflection, which is often overlooked, I think, as an art skill, but it is really important. And then we've included a few slides about assessment. And, you know, there are lots of ways of assessing art, and we don't want to say that our way is the only way, and we understand the pressure, but we've created lots of resources on AccessArt about it, including some from schools as well and what they've done. So we've included a link there. So again, maybe you could use a separate session, a teacher session about assessment, but I think introduce it as something that you do. And then just a reminder for you, for them, to get them to sign up to CPD sessions. And I think our experience is that staff tend not to attend as many as we'd like them to. You know, we've got thousands and thousands of schools using AccessArt, and they do look at the recordings. But I think if you as an art lead can prod them to the CPD coming up, that would be good, or at least get them to watch the recordings. So we'll put a link to that in the broadcast, and then you can download that PowerPoint from the site.
Yeah, so it's in the chat just now, but then we'll send it round as well. And I think there was a few I noticed from the beginning, at the beginning of the session, schools they're going to be starting in September using the curriculum. So good opportunity to have a look through that at this point.
All right then. Thank you very much, everybody.